He was driving through the open countryside, the world around him a blur of fading colors and restless wind. His hands were trembling on the steering wheel, streaked with blood, and in his right hand clutched a small hairpin, delicate, feminine, and soaked in meaning. He didn't seem to have a destination, just a desperate need to keep moving. Every mile of road beneath him was heavy with regret, every breath thick with guilt. That hairpin belonged to her, the love of his life, and the reason he would never know peace again. It all started years ago when Humbert was only 14, just a boy who believed in endless summers and innocent love. He met Annabelle, a girl with warm eyes and wild laughter, and together they built dreams of forever. She wanted to be a nurse, and he, a spy. They were inseparable until tragedy tore them apart. Typhus took her away in just 4 short months, leaving Humbert hollow and broken. From that moment, something inside him changed forever. His idea of love became tangled with loss and obsession, and it haunted him for the rest of his life. By 1947, Humbert was a grown man moving to New England to take a teaching job at Beardsley College. He planned to stay at a friend's home, but when he arrived, the house had been destroyed by fire. A widow named Charlotte Hayes, a friend of his late uncle, offered him a place to stay. Charlotte was charming and talkative, with a flirtatious streak she didn't bother to hide. She found his European accent intriguing, his manners polished. Humbert smiled politely, but his heart wasn't in it until he saw her daughter, Dolores Hayes, known as Lo. The first time he saw her, she was sitting by the sprinklers in the backyard, drenched and glowing in the afternoon light. Her clothes clung to her, and when she looked up at him, she smiled with a hint of mischief. In that moment, time seemed to stop. Humbert muttered under his breath that she was beautiful, and everything inside him shifted. From then on, his every thought, every heartbeat was tied to that girl. Lo was lively, curious, and bold. She liked attention, and she could tell Humbert was drawn to her. One afternoon, she wandered into his room, claiming she was bored. She laughed, played with his things, and even sat on his lap, teasingly asking if he could see the tiny pimple on her chin. Humbert was frozen between temptation and terror. Then Charlotte's voice echoed down the hall, and Lo jumped off him, running away with a grin. When Charlotte appeared moments later, Humbert was still shaking. She asked if her daughter was bothering him, and he forced a laugh, denying everything. Days later, Charlotte confessed her love for him. She told him that if he didn't feel the same, he should leave before she returned home. Humbert hesitated. He didn't love her, but leaving would mean losing Lo, and so he stayed. Before long, they were married, a union built not on love but on lies and obsession. Charlotte tried to please him, but Humbert couldn't stand her. Her voice grated on him. Her touch made his skin crawl. Then one afternoon, Charlotte stumbled upon his hidden journal. In it, she read every forbidden thought, every cruel word, every confession of his twisted desire for her daughter. She confronted him, furious and disgusted, calling him a monster and threatening to expose him to everyone she knew. Humbert tried to calm her down, but she ran out of the house in a storm of tears. Moments later, the phone rang. A stranger's voice told Humbert there had been an accident. He stepped outside and saw Charlotte's lifeless body lying in the middle of the street. She'd been hit by a car, killed instantly. And just like that, the obstacle between Humbert and Lo was gone. He didn't grieve. He didn't cry. Instead, he drove to the summer camp where Lo was staying and picked her up. When she asked about her mother, he told her she was in the hospital, recovering from an illness. They set off on the road together, and what began as a trip quickly turned into something much darker. Lo sensed his loneliness and confusion, and in moments of vulnerability, she tried to fill that void. One night, she kissed him, and everything spiraled beyond repair. They traveled from town to town, hiding behind fake smiles and false identities. In one hotel, Lo befriended a strange man with a dog. Humbert didn't think much of it at first, but later, that same man would reappear again and again, lurking like a shadow in the background. His name was Claire Quiltia, name Humbert would never forget. As the weeks went on, Lo grew distant. She missed school, friends, freedom. Humbert became possessive, paranoid, desperate to keep her close. They eventually settled in Beardsley, where Humbert took up his teaching position, and Lo attended a local prep school. She joined a drama club, directed by none other than Quilty himself. Humbert didn't like the man, but he couldn't stop the connection forming between him and Lo. Their home became a battleground. Lo rebelled, skipped lessons, and lied about her whereabouts. When Humbert confronted her, she taunted him, mocking his obsession. He struck her in anger and she screamed, accusing him of being the same kind of monster who killed her mother. Then she ran. Humbert found her at a pharmacy, pretending to make a call. She told him she wanted to leave Beardsley and travel again, this time on her terms. Humbert agreed, still blinded by his need to control her. As they drove across the country, he noticed they were being followed by a mysterious car. Every time he looked in the mirror, the same vehicle appeared, just far enough to avoid suspicion. Humbert's paranoia grew. He asked Lo to write down the license plate number, but when he checked later, she had changed it. She was protecting someone, and he knew exactly who. His rage boiled over. He slapped her hard, and she ran into the dark, sobbing. Moments later, he found her, apologized, and she forgave him more. Maybe she just gave up. They continued driving, exhausted and broken. At a small motel, Humbert heard on the radio that Claire Quilty was nearby. When he returned to the room, Lo looked disheveled and guilty. He demanded to know where she'd been, but she just laughed, mocking his anger. The tension exploded and their fragile bond shattered completely. The next day, Lo fell sick. Humbert took her to a hospital, where the doctor insisted she stay overnight. The following morning, when Humbert called to check on her, the nurse told him she'd already been picked up by her uncle. His heart stopped. He didn't have an uncle. The man's name, she said, was Quilty. Humbert rushed to the hospital, only to find an empty bed and the flowers he brought thrown into the trash. Lo was gone. For years, he searched for her every small town, every clue, always just a few steps behind. But he never found her. Time passed, and guilt became his only companion. Then one day, a letter arrived. It was from Lo. She was alive, married, and pregnant. She said she was struggling and needed money. Humbert didn't hesitate. He packed his car and went to see her. When she opened the door, he barely recognized her. She wasn't the girl he once knew. She was older, heavier, tired, but stronger somehow. She smiled warmly and let him in. As they talked, Humbert realized she knew he'd been searching for Quilty all this time. And she told him the truth. It was Quilty who had taken her from the hospital. Quilty who made films with young girls. Quilty who promised her freedom and gave her shame. Humbert listened in silence as she spoke. When she finished, he asked if she'd ever come back with him. She shook her head. Her life might be difficult, but it was hers now. Before leaving, he offered her money, $4,000. She thought he was bribing her, but he said it was a gift. Then, quietly, he asked if she'd ever forget him. She didn't answer. She just told her dog to say goodbye. That night, Humbert drove straight to Quilty's mansion. The man greeted him with a smirk, amused and arrogant. Bert said nothing. He raised his gun and fired. The echoes of the shots carried through the empty halls, and for the first time, Humbert felt something close to relief. Hours later, he was back on the same road from the beginning alone, covered in blood, and finally out of places to hide. The hairpin still rested between his fingers, the last memory of the girl who had destroyed and defined him. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Humbert didn't try to escape. He knew it was over. Maybe it always had been.